Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "Women are animals with long hair and short ideas." This harsh and shocking quote reflects just how disappointed he was with love, relationships, and human nature as a whole. Schopenhauer wasn't trying to be romantic or hopeful. He believed life was full of suffering, and at the core of everything we do is a blind, powerful force he called the will to live. This force isn't guided by logic or kindness. It's a deep, unconscious drive that pushes us to survive, reproduce, and chase desires, even when those desires make us miserable. He believed that this will is the root of all human behavior, why we fall in love, compete, lie, or even betray others. We think we're in control of our choices, but according to Schopenhauer, we're not. We're just following this hidden force, always wanting more, never satisfied for long. Even when we get what we want, new desires quickly appear. That's why people feel empty after achieving something they once dreamed about. This endless cycle of craving, getting, and craving again is what he believed causes so much of the pain in human life. In his view, true peace only comes when we step back from these desires and see them for what they are, just tricks of the will to keep us moving, never resting. In Schopenhauer's view, love isn't some magical or spiritual bond, it's a biological strategy. He believed that romantic feelings are just nature's way of tricking us into reproducing. According to him, the strong emotions we feel in love aren't about deep connection or lifelong happiness. They're part of a hidden system designed to keep the human species going. In other words, love is not about joy, it's about survival. This idea connects to a deeper and often uncomfortable concept called hypergamy, the natural tendency to seek a partner of higher status. Throughout history, women often chose mates who could offer safety, stability, and resources, things that would increase the chances of their children surviving and thriving. While modern society has changed in many ways, this instinct still exists, quietly shaping dating and relationship choices today. Studies show that when people learn what hypergamy really is, almost half admit they see it in a more positive light. But for many men, facing this truth can be emotionally tough. A man might be kind, loyal, and supportive, but still feel invisible compared to someone who simply has more money, power, or confidence. This can create a deep sense of rejection and confusion. He may begin to doubt his worth, thinking he's never good enough, no matter how hard he tries. Over time, this feeling can turn into frustration, bitterness, or even sadness. On a deeper level, the pressure to meet these unspoken standards of success can harm a man's mental health, shaking his confidence and making him question his masculinity. It's a psychological burden that many silently carry, especially in a world that often values appearance and status over inner character. But once we understand these patterns, we're no longer trapped by them, we can grow from them. Instead of chasing approval from others or trying to fit into someone else's idea of success, men can turn inward and focus on their own development. This means building real confidence, setting personal goals, and learning to respect themselves, not because someone else praises them, but because they know their own value. When a man stops living for validation and starts living with intention, something powerful happens. Love is no longer a painful game of chasing acceptance, but a meaningful part of life that comes naturally from inner strength. This shift is not just about relationships. It's about waking up to the truth behind our wants and realizing how much of what we desire is shaped by pressure, not by personal truth. Society tells us what we're supposed to want: success, attraction, approval, but once we see through that illusion, we stop living on autopilot. Schopenhauer's philosophy reminds us that many of our desires are just tricks of nature. But if we can recognize them for what they are, we can rise above them. And in doing so, we become more than just products of instinct. We become conscious, resilient individuals with purpose and peace inside. The tragedy of desire, according to Schopenhauer, isn't just that it misleads us, it's that it never stops. Even when we get what we think we want, the feeling of satisfaction is short-lived. Almost immediately, a new desire takes its place. It's like chasing a moving target that keeps disappearing the moment you think you've caught it. This constant craving doesn't bring joy, it brings exhaustion. And love, instead of being a peaceful escape, becomes one of the most intense traps of all. It feels magical on the surface, attraction, passion, emotional highs, but underneath, it's just the will to life doing whatever it takes to keep the species going. This is the part that's hard to accept. We like to think we fall in love because we truly connect with someone, because our hearts have chosen them. But most of the time, it's biology working behind the scenes, guiding us toward the person who has the traits most likely to create strong offspring. That's the will's only concern, survival, not happiness. So once its job is done, once a child is born or the future seems secure, what we called love often begins to fade. The spark we thought was eternal turns into silence or struggle. And what's left is the realization that maybe we weren't in control after all. Schopenhauer understood this so clearly that he called love a kind of trap, a clever trick created by nature to keep us caught in a cycle we don't truly control. This idea made many people uncomfortable because it challenges the way we usually think about love. It forces us to face a hard question: what if the romantic stories we tell ourselves about love are just lies we choose to believe? When we add the reality of hypergamy to this view, everything becomes even clearer. Love isn't just about having children, it's about making careful choices to pass on the best genes. Hypergamy, often laughed at or criticized, is actually deeply rooted in our biology. Even though society tries to put a modern spin on it, the behavior hasn't changed much. If you look at dating apps, the truth is obvious. A small group of high-status men get most of the attention from women, while others, no matter how kind, honest, or loyal, are often ignored and forgotten. This isn't about pointing fingers or blaming anyone. It's about confronting a tough reality with honest and clear eyes. The modern man is often raised on stories and fairy tales about love, romance, and connection. Taught from a young age to be kind-hearted, emotionally open, and sensitive. He is encouraged to show vulnerability, to express his feelings, and to prioritize empathy. Yet, when he lives according to these ideals, the response he gets can be confusing and painful. Instead of the acceptance and affection he hoped for, he often experiences rejection or indifference. Meanwhile, the man who appears distant, confident, and financially successful seems to receive most of the admiration and romantic interest. This contrast reveals an uncomfortable truth. In the complex world of dating and attraction, being kind or morally good is not necessarily what determines value or desirability. The harsh reality is that attraction often follows different rules, rules that are more strategic, biologically driven, and sometimes even transactional. These rules are shaped by deep evolutionary instincts that influence human behavior more than we usually want to admit. While society prefers to frame relationships in terms of love and emotion, beneath the surface there are powerful forces pushing people to make choices based on status, resources, and perceived long-term benefit. This doesn't mean that kindness or genuine connection doesn't matter at all, but it does mean that these qualities alone may not guarantee success in the dating arena. However, becoming aware of this doesn't have to be discouraging or defeatist. On the contrary, this awareness can serve as a powerful wake-up call. Once a man truly understands the unspoken dynamics at play, he can stop blindly following scripts that don't serve him. He can stop chasing approval, validation, or love from others as if these things are the only source of his worth. Instead, he can turn inward, focusing on building himself up, not for anyone else's approval, but for his own growth and fulfillment. This shift in perspective allows him to step away from the exhausting, never-ending chase that often leaves men feeling frustrated and depleted. Choosing to withdraw from the game isn't about bitterness or surrender. It's about clarity and conscious decision-making. It means becoming so complete, so grounded in who he is, that the need for external validation fades away. When a man reaches this level of wholeness and self-confidence, he stops needing someone else to fill the gaps within him. Rather than pleading for attention or trying to win someone over, he naturally radiates a presence that attracts others effortlessly. This kind of magnetic confidence comes from self-mastery, not performance or manipulation. It's a presence rooted in authenticity, strength, and quiet assurance, qualities that no amount of external status or superficial charm can replicate. This transformation is never easy. It often starts with pain and discomfort. True growth almost always begins with a harsh awakening, a moment when illusions shatter and the reality underneath becomes undeniable. For many men, this means facing the bitter truth that their sense of worth has been tied too closely to the opinions and acceptance of others, especially romantic partners. When a man finally stops depending on others to define his value, he stops losing precious energy and starts reclaiming it for himself. This is a crucial turning point. Instead of apologizing for what it means to be masculine, he begins to understand and master his own masculinity on his own terms. He shifts his focus away from measuring his worth by how attractive or desirable he appears to others, and starts asking a far deeper question: what kind of man am I truly becoming? In this shift, Schopenhauer's ideas take on a new light. While many see him as a philosopher of despair and negativity, his teachings can also be read as a call to inner strength and clarity. Schopenhauer's philosophy doesn't invite defeat or hopelessness. Instead, it demands a kind of detachment, a separation from the illusions and false hopes that keep us trapped in cycles of pain. Detachment doesn't mean indifference or coldness, it means freedom. Freedom to see love and desire exactly as they are, without the rose-colored filters society often places over them. Freedom to stop chasing approval and begin pursuing personal growth and self-mastery. Freedom to declare with conviction, I will no longer suffer for illusions that cloud my mind and weaken my spirit. This process is not a rejection of love itself, but a deeper understanding of what love really is and what it is not. It's a recognition that true fulfillment doesn't come from others, but from the strength and completeness we build within ourselves. When a man embraces this path, he moves from being a victim of his desires to becoming the master of his own fate. This is the power Schopenhauer quietly points to beneath his bleak words, the power of awareness, detachment, and self-realization. It is through this painful yet liberating journey that a man can find true resilience, an unshakable inner peace that no external circumstance can destroy. From this place of detachment, something even deeper begins to take shape, a careful, selective vulnerability. It's not about shutting off the heart completely or building walls that no one can cross. Instead, it's about learning when and how to open up, choosing to share love not out of need or desperation, but from a place of true wholeness and strength. This kind of love is different. It's not driven by the endless demands of desire or the desperate attempts to fill a void. It flows freely because the man giving it is already complete within himself. At this point, he no longer remains a prisoner to the relentless will that Schopenhauer described. He steps into a new role, becoming the master of his own life and emotions. This isn't the kind of love story that's told in movies or in popular culture. It's not wrapped in sweet promises or easy comfort. But it is the kind of truth that leads to real freedom. The man who truly understands Schopenhauer's vision doesn't run away from these hard truths. Instead, he lets them shape and strengthen him. He stops waiting for the world to reward his kindness or goodness, and instead becomes formidable through his own discipline and resolve. Rooted in solitude, sharpened by moments of quiet reflection, he discovers that the peace he once sought in others actually lives deep within himself. It is a peace born not from external validation, but from the mastery of his own mind, emotions, and will. This inner strength is what allows him to love fully and freely, without losing himself in the process. In a world where everyone is shouting to be noticed and desire is always loud, he moves with quiet strength and calm confidence. In a society that constantly craves approval and applause, he stays steady and unshaken, rooted in his own truth. While many chase after status, fame, or wealth as if those things define their value, he refuses to follow those shallow rules. Instead, he creates his own worth, strong, steady, and proudly his own. This path is one of real freedom, born from facing the world without illusions. It's not easy, it's full of struggles, doubts, and moments that test his resolve. But it's honest, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. For the men brave enough to walk this road, love no longer feels like a trap or a heavy weight. It becomes a clear choice, a powerful and intentional decision made from a place of confidence and self-respect. This is the kind of love given by a man who doesn't wait to be chosen or accepted. He chooses freely because he is whole and complete on his own.